This is Unconditioning, Discovering the Voice Within, with Whitney and Jenkins. Hello and welcome to the 100th episode of Unconditioning, Discovering the Voice Within, where I bring on guests and we talk about the inner authentic voice and the challenges and the rewards that come from following it. This week, I have with me myself. This is the 100th episode, and so I thought I would do a reflection back on the podcast of where it started and where it's now and where it's headed. And to be honest, I had a lot of resistance to record this episode. Part of me just wanted to skip by this milestone and just keep releasing the episodes that I have in queue of some really incredible and remarkable guests coming up. But I need to take a moment and reflect and honor myself and all of the guests that have shown up for this, and all of the listeners too, to create this space of something that really does matter. I started this podcast back in 2020 in the middle of COVID, when the world was quiet and loud all at once. And I was having these deep, unfiltered conversations with people in my life. And I felt that other people needed to hear them. I felt this pull to share them, to create a space for that kind of truth. And since then, it's been me. No production team, no intern, no marketing department, just me with the mic, the editing, the scheduling, the publishing, the outreach, the captions, the website updates, the Instagram posts, the emails, and the follow-ups. And I've done it all, and I don't regret it. But I've done it all through life transitions and losses and grief and moves and breakups and a doctoral program and everything else in between. And the truth is, it's a lot. And there have been moments where I thought, maybe I've said enough, or maybe no one's listening, or maybe I'll just take a break and never come back. But something keeps pulling me back. And I think it's that this podcast was never meant to be polished. It was meant to be real. So here I am, mess and all, because life is messy. And there's real beauty in that. The kind that says, you're still here, you're still trying, and you're just going to show up, and that counts for something. We live in a world that's obsessed with the highlight reel. But this show, it's always been about the in-between, the honest moments, the becoming. So if you're in that space right now, the foggy middle, the not yet, the deeply human unfolding, this episode is for you. You're not behind, you're becoming, and you're exactly where you need to be. Before I talk about what I've learned or where this is going, I want to take a moment to thank the people who've made this space what it is. The guests, first of all, and the listeners. This podcast wouldn't exist without the people who've said yes to being seen, to being vulnerable, to telling the truth, even when they weren't sure how it would land. And I so admire all of the guests that came on to share their story. Some came on in the middle of heartbreak, some in the middle of reinvention, some while still trying to figure out who they were becoming. And every single one brought something of value, of wisdom, and they trusted me to hold that space for them to do so. And that is something that I will not take lightly, ever. What's amazed me also is how many guests have said afterwards, something shifted for me, or I feel something transformed after that conversation. And I believe them, because when you're met in your truth, without judgment, without performance, when someone witnesses you, something always shifts. The power of being witnessed, being seen authentically. It's not even about being understood, it's about being seen fully and with care. And that alone can be transformative. There's one guest that I think about often, Lester Malizia, who was a dear friend of mine and mentor and beloved director by so many. And Lester isn't here anymore. And because of this podcast, his voice still is. His story, his laughter, his wisdom, his humanity, he lives on in this episode that we recorded together. It celebrates his legacy. And I'm so grateful that we captured it. This space, in a way, has become a time capsule, a space to hold people's legacies, a space where their stories outlast their time, where their truth gets to echo and ripple and continue moving people. That's not a responsibility that I take lightly. And especially now, right now in history, when truth can feel slippery, when performance is rewarded and vulnerability is often co-opted, holding space for something real feels sacred. Dialogue is sacred. This podcast isn't just about stories. It's about remembering. It's about coming back to what's authentic. It's about giving voice to what's often silenced. Not to go viral, but to feel alive. This kind of space matters more now than ever, in my opinion, because when you don't know what to trust out there, sometimes all you can do is tell the truth in here. So thank you to every single guest who said yes. You've made this more than a podcast. You've made it a living archive of truth. And I'll say this too. Hosting this podcast has changed me. Not just my perspective, not just my capacity to listen, but my relationship to my own voice. It's helped me find it, trust it, say what I mean without performing it, let the pauses be part of the point, let my uncertainty be part of my strength. And somewhere between episode 1 and episode 100, I stopped waiting to sound smart or intellectual or polished as much, even if that means saying like way too much. And I started sounding like myself and feeling more confident about allowing my voice to be shared within the dialogue with other guests and allowing my wisdom and my lived experiences to also be able to be inserted into the mix. Because when I first started, I just wanted to give space and allow a platform for others to share their story. And that is definitely still the main essence of what we're doing here, to allow others to shine their lights. But I've learned in the process of this to allow my light to shine a little more and not have to dim it so much. So someone messaged me recently and said, I'd love to hear what you've learned from doing this about unconditioning, intuition, creativity, all of it. And I've been sitting with that because those themes aren't really bullet points to me. They're woven into everything. Unconditioning for me has been the slow peeling away of everything I thought I had to be in order to be loved, successful, accepted, safe. So it's not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before you started performing to fit within what you thought you had to fit within or believe or show up as. And once you start to unravel that thread, something quieter and wiser begins to speak up. That awareness allows intuition. It's not always dramatic, though it can be. If you ignore it, it will find a way to poke at you. But it can be subtle. That's one common theme that the guests have told me over and over again. The voice underneath the noise that says this feels true, or this doesn't sit right, or you already know. It can be subtle, and you have to listen. And when that voice is trusted, it seems to open up the flow of creativity, not as content, not as perfection, but as a kind of communication with a deeper self. So this podcast has been all of that at once, a place to uncondition, a space to follow intuition, a practice in trusting creativity to lead. Creativity to me is not a product, it's a response. It's how to metabolize the truth, how to make sense of what's too big or too weird or too holy for words, and to connect with our intuition by unconditioning is how we are able to express ourselves through creativity. And when we allow ourselves to meet our most authentic self, then that is, to me, where the magic occurs through that creativity. Creativity through unconditioning. And there's another thread that seems to be something that has always been with me, but is definitely a theme that I've seen emerge from these conversations. The tension between being nice, being fierce, and taking up space, and being quiet. For a long time, I thought I had to choose. Be nice to stay liked, be fierce to be taken seriously, be quiet so I didn't take up too much space. But what I've learned through this podcast, through coaching, through my own healing, is that we don't have to split ourselves up and compartmentalize ourselves to be safe. You can be kind and still have strong boundaries. You can be fierce and still hold tenderness. You can be quiet and still carry power. Those aren't contradictions, they're dimensions. And reclaiming all of those dimensions is part of what unconditioning has helped me do. And here's something that I haven't said enough, and maybe not really ever on this podcast, but I do coach people. I work with people, with artists, performers, seekers, anyone who is in the middle of becoming, who are trying to remember who they are, not just perform who they think they're supposed to be. I used to hesitate to claim that I do that. I thought I had to wait until my PhD was finished or until someone else told me that I was ready. I didn't have enough credentials or certifications or enough, qualifications to be able to present myself and put myself out into the world. And that is a part of my own conditioning, I've learned. But the truth is, I've been doing this for a long time, holding space, listening deeply, asking the questions that help someone hear themselves again and remember themselves again. Yes, I'm trained. Yes, I'm certified. But more than anything, I'm practiced. And I've lived this. I've done this for myself. I chose not to go the clinical route in psychology, not because I don't value therapy. I do. But because I wanted space for the mystery, for the story, for the beauty, for transformation that doesn't always come with a name and can't be labeled into a box. As James Hillman said, beauty is the way the gods touch our senses. And that's what I want to help people find again. Not perfection, but beauty. Beauty in the mess, beauty in the truth, beauty in the becoming, beauty in actually loving ourselves first. If you've been listening and you feel that tug, that you would like to explore that deeper, reach out. I would love to walk with you. So what's next for this podcast in particular, for the listeners who also are such a big part of this? Thank you for all of the reviews that you've left, all of the downloads and the follows and the shares and the reaching out and letting me know what resonates with you. It really, really helps me to keep this going. And also helps me to get more people interested. The more people who listen, the more sustainable that this can be. And even I got my first sponsor through the podcast recently. So thank you, Magic Mind, for believing in me and the show enough to want to attach your name to it. That is the most meaningful thing that has happened to me in the podcast this past year, for sure. So I want to release more episodes more often. I have so many upcoming that I'm going to aim to post 3 new episodes a week, and I'll eventually want to bring video into the mix. I want to create more connection between you and me, between all of us. This podcast has always been rooted in intimacy, and I want to keep building that. Not as a brand, but as a community, a place where we can remember together and learn together and uncondition together, because unconditioning is a process. It's in the process. It's not a destination that you end up at. It is a remembrance that you have to show up and remember every day to take those steps, to connect with that authenticity within yourself and make the choices that allow you to do that. And yeah, I might miss a week here or there, and I apologize for being inconsistent in the past. This is still a one-woman show. I'm still writing a dissertation, still living, I'm still growing, stumbling, standing back up. But I'll keep showing up because it matters, because this space means something to me, and it seems to mean something to others as well. Thank you for walking with me. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of this. Here's to the next 100. Here's to what's coming. Here's to the beauty and the mess and the showing up anyway. Here's to you, exactly as you are. See you in the next one. Thank you so much for joining me this week. If you're listening and you like what you hear, please consider subscribing and rating this podcast, as it really helps get this podcast out to other people who might be interested in hearing it but don't know about it yet. And also, if you'd like to contact me or reach me, you can reach me at unconditioningpodcast@gmail.com or unconditioningpodcast on Instagram. Thank you so much. And until next time, stay tuned in to you.